My introductions, my name's Cara. I'm a People and Capability Business Partner at the City of Whittlesea. And today we're going to be covering off how to write a cover letter. So I'll be sharing a presentation with you, and as we do move through the slides, if you do have any questions at all, on your Microsoft Teams, you'll notice that there's a hand. You can actually push on that hand and it will let me know that you've got your hand up to ask a question. And I'll stop at the end of each slide just to ask if there is any questions, so please don't hesitate to jump in at any time. Once you, if you do want to ask a question, if you could pop yourself back on mute following that, just to ensure that we don't have any background noise as we move through the presentation, that'd be great. So just a bit of background on myself. So I am currently in human resources, but I also have been in leadership roles as well. And I've also been a job seeker. So going through how to write a cover letter today, I'll be able to give you some insights from both sides of the fence, obviously having to create one and address certain criteria to make sure that I'm capturing the attention of recruiters. And also,
Cara,
yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. This is Daphne.
Okay.
I'm one of the teachers. Could I very nicely and politely ask you to go a little bit slower, please?
Oh, sure, of course. Thank you for the reminder.
But the students might have a bit of trouble following you.
Of course. No, I appreciate that
Cara.
feedback. Thank you. Thanks, Daphne. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Likewise.
Excellent. So as I mentioned, I'll obviously start to move through each of the slides and just detail specifically why we, what is an actual cover letter and the reasons that we write one, and then just go through a bit of the actual structure of a cover letter. And then towards the end of the session, I'll actually show you an actual cover letter, so a bit of a to give you an idea as to how one might be created. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you now. Won't be a moment. Okay. Daphne, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see that okay on your screen? Amazing, thank you. Okay. So what is a cover letter? So a cover letter is a one-page letter that's included with your resume. So when you're applying for job applications, you'll send a cover letter accompanied by your resume. So there's a little bit of a difference between a cover letter and a resume. So what a cover letter is designed to do is it gives prospective employers that you'd like to work for an insight into your skills and your education. And it gives them an insight into how you'd actually apply them to the role that you're applying for. So a cover letter is the first insight that a person has into who you are. So it really helps to pull out of your resume any work history that's relevant to the role, and also any education that you may have completed that's also relevant to the actual role that you're applying for. So opposed to a prospective employer having to go through the detail of your resume on work history and education, it's really a summarized view of how you as an individual will meet the requirements of the actual role through your skills and attributes from your previous work history and also your education. So writing a cover letter really should be part of every job application that you make, unless the job advert specifically asks for one not to be included. So it's really important that we create our cover letters and include them as a normal part of our process. And typically, if a recruiter does receive a resume in isolation with no accompanying cover letter, then there might be an opportunity that's missed for you because you haven't actually met the first requirements of the actual role, which was to provide a cover letter with your resume and with your actual application. Do we have any questions on any of that to begin with, guys?
Yes, hi, can I ask some question?
Of course.
And actually, some company, I am basically telecommunication engineer. I recently moved in Fab from Dubai. I have experience in telecommunication in Emirates Telecommunication. I applied like job in Telstra, sometime I even given the interview, a video interview due to lockdown, but I don't know. Interview looks okay. It's normal. They ask my work. They ask other thing, and first always they initially start by recruitment manager. They forward you are selected, and then their team video. I give the interview. I ask everything, but I don't know. After that, I did not get the feedback on this one. They never say you are unsuccessful. No, like this three interview. So how I will know where I am wrong, and they did not say during interview like that. And in one more question, if we put only resume without covering letter, so application will not be acceptable.
So some recruiters may continue through to look at your resume just on your second question. But if there is a requirement for a cover letter to be included, some recruiters may look over your application because you haven't actually met the requirements of the application, which was to include a cover letter and your resume as well. So it definitely may be a missed opportunity if it asks for one and you haven't included it. Also, a cover letter, as I mentioned, is really the first insight that recruiters get into how your skills and education meet the requirements of the role without them having to go through a lengthy resume. So again, it's a missed opportunity for you to capture their attention. And I imagine Telstra during this lockdown period were obviously quite busy with recruitment because they were bringing a lot of roles back on shore because of COVID-19. So there may have been obviously gaps in their recruitment where there just wasn't enough time for them to get back to people who had applied for roles. So to gain feedback, I would often recommend that you actually reach out and contact the recruitment department, the HR department of Telstra, requesting some feedback so that you do know potentially what gaps were either in your academics or your experience that may have contributed to you not being successful, because it's really important that we understand that so that we obviously can try and close those gaps to secure the roles that we're trying to secure.
And one more question, if you don't mind. So
absolutely.
In Telstra, can I work for getting my local experience and enhance my skill? So like for few months or few days internship or unpaid placement work, they do like that?
Do they do that through Telstra?
Yeah, in Telstra, because my work is Emirates Telecommunication is like big carrier company, same like Telstra. So if I start work in Telstra to gain local experience, so I can approach them. I'm available for they can arrange internship or unpaid work placement for me for few weeks. Is it possible here?
I think that's a great question to ask the Telstra team directly. So on the Telstra website, you'll actually find recruitment contact details. And I think that's a great email to forward through to that team so that they can help give you an insight into
Okay.
what's actually available for you. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Any other questions before we move on? Oh, fantastic. Okay, so when we're constructing our cover letter, it's really important that we make sure that we tailor a cover letter to the role that we're applying. So often we see job seekers have one cover letter and one resume that they use to apply for all roles. So it's really important that we actually tailor our cover letter to the role that we're applying for, and also check over our resume to make sure that it aligns with the actual role. So what I mean by that is, if we were applying for a customer service role, in the advertisement and also the position description, we may see that the organisation refers to customer service as a customer first experience that they're trying to give to their customers. So within your cover letter, you could obviously relate your experience and also your education to how you would meet that customer first experience that they're trying to provide to their customers, and actually utilise the word customer first and link to, as I mentioned, link your experience and your skills to how you would deliver on that. Whereas you may find another customer service advertisement for a different organisation may refer to customer service as a priority service that they're trying to provide to their customers. So again, in your cover letter, you would use the same language, either customer first or priority service, so that the actual recruiter resonated with how your skills and attributes aligned with the actual requirements of the role. So your cover letter should not mirror your resume. So it's not a replica of what you've actually added to your resume. So you typically wouldn't see dot points or specific details around dates of work history or specifics around your actual education, such as the actual details of every single course that you've done. You may mention relevant courses to the role that you're applying for, but again, it's generally a high-level introduction into how your skills and attributes meet the requirements of the actual role. So a cover letter doesn't need to be very long. It's very similar to what we call an elevator pitch. So if you were jumping in an elevator with a CEO of a company, you would give him a brief description of how amazing you were from a professional perspective and how great you were doing within the organisation. So a cover letter is designed for you to sell yourself in a snapshot by detailing the types of experience that you have, the type of education that you have, and how that meets the requirements of the actual role. So it doesn't need to be long, but it just needs to be very specific and straight to the point, so that the recruiter gets a really quick snapshot into how you would actually meet the requirements of the role. So it's often said that within the first 30 seconds, sometimes even less, of a recruiter reading a cover letter and a resume, they've already made up their mind as to whether they think that you might be a great candidate to continue to an interview for that particular role. So it's really important that we make sure our cover letters have a very detailed and specific, but also capture the attention of any potential recruiters as well. Any questions before we move on about those? Excellent. Okay. Hi, Fatima, how are you? You've got your hand up.
Oh, no, I said just it's okay. Thank you.
Oh, no, that's okay. No problems. Sorry, did anybody else have a question? No, perfect. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to go into a bit about the actual structure of an actual cover letter. And as I mentioned, at the end, I'll give show you a template of a cover letter that encapsulates everything that we go through in each of these slides. So from an opening perspective, in the first couple of lines of a cover letter, you should really be telling the reader why he or she should be interested in you. So as I mentioned, it's a real opportunity for you to start selling yourself about how amazing that you are and how you'd meet the role requirements based on your skills and your experience in that particular field. So a bit of an example of what that might look like is as a young and motivated individual, I'm extremely interested in submitting an application for the advertised position, and obviously you detail the actual name of the position. Moving through to the middle of the cover letter. So you typically use this particular section to highlight your skills, your attributes, and your academics that are relevant to the role. So if we were applying for a customer service role and if we had a particular certificate or a diploma in hospitality, unless the two were linked in any way, it wouldn't be an opportunity to actually mention a diploma or certificate in that particular industry because it's a customer service centric role. So you'd obviously detail that in your resume, but your cover letter is really tailored to making sure that you're detailing experience and also education that's relevant to the role. So this is an example that you'd see in a particular cover letter. So I completed my VCE studies and also obtained a certificate 2 in business administration. This has given me a range of foundational skills that will both support me and allow me to contribute to any future roles. Okay, so when we're moving through to closing our cover letter, it really should bring the letter to a polite close and also putting a little bit of a sentence about the desire to meet to discuss the position further with the potential organisation / recruiter. So a little example of how you could place that is enclosed is my resume for your review. I believe I am an excellent candidate for this role and look forward to meeting with you to discuss this position further. Thanking you in advance for your time. Okay, so I'm going to give you bring up the actual example of the cover letter now, just to see how we bring that all together. Okay, William, I've got you on my screen. Can you give me a thumbs up if that letter's popped up in front of you, okay? Thank you, Daphne. Perfect. Thank you. Excellent. Okay, so if this was a particular example for a customer service role that we were applying for, so it's really important that we tailor, as I mentioned, the cover letter. So the first component of doing that is by adding the actual details of the company, the organisation that we're applying for the role through. So we'll add the contact name if there's one being added to the advertisement, and if there hasn't, that's okay. We can simply just add the business name. Sometimes we're applying for roles that are advertised through recruitment agencies. So instead of adding the organisation's details, we could add the recruitment detail, the recruiter's details in this space here. Adding the date that you're applying for the actual role. Adding the position that you're applying for, especially if there's a number of roles that are being advertised either through a recruitment agency or directly through an organisation. It helps obviously the recruiters to understand which role that you're actually applying for. And then we're starting off our letter. So as I mentioned, from an opening perspective, we're introducing ourselves. So as a young, motivated individual, I'm extremely interested in submitting an application for the advertised position and adding the actual details of that role here. So then, as I mentioned, heading towards the actual, sorry, is there a question there?
Excuse me.
Yes.
Could you please maximize your screen?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a bit small, sorry about that. Let me give that a try now. I'll just see if I can bring that up a little bit bigger for you guys.
Cara, is it a Word document? It's Maria here.
It is. I'm just opening it, and then I can make it a little bit bigger. It's just my my Word's been very slow, Maria. It hasn't been playing very nicely this week. All right, guys, I'm just going to share my screen again.
If you go to view, you can make it bigger. Is that what you did? Yeah.
Oh, I just went down the bottom and hit the positive sign, and that blew it up for me, which was
okay.
helpful. Yeah. Let me give this a try. All right, I'm just going to share my screen again.
And there's a few hands up. I don't know if Maniza, Fatima, Kamal, and Hanwin still are wanting to ask a question. Maniza? Did Maniza want to ask a question? Fatima, you have your hands up?
No, I'm okay. I just because she said she asked us about did we can say the cover letter, then we say yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just
sorry.
click the hand so it goes down. That's okay. No worries.
Thank you.
Go, Cara.
Okay. All right.
That's better, Cara.
Perfect. Thank you, Maria. Excellent. Okay. Okay. So now we're moving through to the actual middle structure of the cover letter itself. And as I mentioned, this is a really great opportunity for you to start mentioning how your skills and your experience and your education match the role requirements. So this is an example of the actual academic perspective of, so in the education of how this particular person meets the role requirements. So they've mentioned that they've completed VCE studies and also obtained a certificate in business administration, and mentioning what type of skill set this has given them to allow them to contribute to any future roles. They've also gone on to detail the work experience that they've had, which also relate to this particular, the role requirements. So this particular individual has mentioned that they worked part-time as a customer service assistant for Bernie's. This position has given me key employability skills while also allowing me to experience working in a professional and fast-paced work environment. So this gives us an insight that this individual has obviously worked in a customer service driven environment, and it's also been a very fast-paced environment. So as a recruiter, I can automatically get an insight into the type of skills that they would have needed to be successful in that type of environment. Okay, so again, still in the middle of the actual cover letter, we go on to detail how the experience actually matches specifically the requirements of the role. So with regard to my ability to meet the specific requirements of this job, and they've been very specific. So customer service, so worked for 4 years in a face-to-face customer service environment, providing customer service at registers, lay-by counter and on the retail floor. So again, this gives a recruiter a really great insight into the type of customer service that the individual was working in, the type of environment, and specifically what they were actually doing in that customer service role. So they were obviously using registers, therefore they had to handle money, and also they were interacting with customers on a retail floor, so asking questions, being able to stock take, different things like that. Reception duties, so responsibilities at Bernie's included answering incoming phones, assisting customers with phone-based inquiries. So as much as everybody uses their phone, sometimes those types of skills in a professional environment can be quite different, because you can be sometimes managing customers who are happy, who are upset. So again, it's a different skill set that's required. Fatima, did you have your hand up for a question?
Sorry, Cara, no, maybe, is it still the hand on?
Yeah, that's okay. I'll pop it down for you.
I'm so sorry, I don't know how to stop it.
That's okay. No, that's fine. I'll pop it down for you. Thank you. Okay. And then we go on to detail that there was some general administration. So this is where they've actually given insight into the education that they have. So Certificate 2 in Business Administration has provided training in the use of skills, including filing, data processing, records management, and written communication. So we can see how they tie in quite nicely together in terms of foundational skills that the actual individual has gained through being employed, and also education and how they've all come together to help them to meet the requirements of the actual role. This particular individual has also taken the time to give 2 lines around insight into what their teacher and their previous employers have given them feedback around their certain skills and attributes. So my teachers and employers have commended me for my high level of interpersonal skills and naturally engaging personality. My motivations include learning new things and the challenge of meeting key objectives. So that's that bit of a sales pitch that they've taken the opportunity to give to the recruiter and potential employers. And it's a bit of a referee, I suppose, a check that they've obviously included information about if we were to call their referrals at the end of the recruitment process, we might see that we get the similar feedback. So again, it's that sales pitch opportunity that they've taken to give them a little bit of insight into the type of person that they are, and also what they're interested in and what they're motivated about, which is, for this person, learning new things and the challenge of meeting key objectives. Then we come to closing the resume. So again, we're confirming that we have included our resume in the application, and that we believe that we are a great candidate for this particular role, as we've mentioned in the previous lines, and that we look forward to meeting with you to discuss the position further. So it's really leaving the cover letter open to an invitation to please call me so that we can have a further chat about this. Thanking you in advance, and then obviously including your name at the end of the cover letter. So you can see the cover letter is not very long, but it's very specific and offering that sales pitch opportunity and offering the recruiter an opportunity to have an insight into your skills, attributes and experience before they start moving into your resume. So I'll just pause there for a moment. Is there any questions around cover letters?
Just Cara, I just wanted to check if you could send or attach the letter to the chat so people might have an example. And
Absolutely.
I think Kamal has his hand up.
Excellent. Thank you, Maria. I absolutely will attach that to the chat so you have access to that template for everybody. Kamal, did you have a question? Sorry, Kamal, you're just on mute.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask same question. So can we get this template?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'll pop it in the chat for you and then you'll have access to be able to download that.
And William has a question. Sorry, Kamal, had you finished? Sorry.
Yeah, one more thing. It's in the top. We will write about the company where we are applying for this role.
In this section here?
In the top, you write something about the company.
In the first line?
Add contact name. So where and yeah, about the phones on the top, we will write about the company where we are applying.
Yeah, so for example, Kamal, if we use the Telstra example, if you were applying directly through Telstra, there might be a recruiter contact name that you could add here, and then obviously you'd add Telstra. If there was no name, you could just simply leave the business name and you would delete this because obviously you don't have an actual contact person. Or alternatively, if it's through a recruitment agency, you could simply put the contact name of the person on the actual advertisement and leave out the business. Because sometimes if we apply through a platform like Seek or Indeed, and it's through a recruitment agency, sometimes we don't know who the actual company is until we apply and have a conversation. So you could simply just attention it to the recruiter on the advertisement.
Okay, and we will describe about the company initially or no? Like Telstra is one of the leading largest telecom company. We will give some profile of the company or no need?
So when you're applying for a role at Telstra, as an example, they'll know all that information. So this is an opportunity for you to give information about you. So that's the idea of a cover letter. Yeah.
About me, not from. No need to write about Telstra initially, no?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right, Kamal.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. William, did you have your hand up?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can perfectly.
Okay, my name is William.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. I'm a student in Certificate 3 at Epping campus, and Daphne is my teacher.
Excellent.
Yeah, as you said about what were to include in a cover letter, I wanted to know, are there something that should never be in a cover letter?
Should never be in the cover letter?
Yeah. So meaning, what shouldn't we include in our cover letter?
Yeah. So my top tips on what not to include would be any work experience or education that is not relevant to the role. So an example I mentioned before, if you're applying for a customer service role in a call centre and you have a hospitality certificate or diploma, that's not something that you would include in your cover letter. And also, if you had work experience in hospitality, you wouldn't include that in a customer service contact centre role. So you're really just looking to be specific about your experience and your education relevant to the role that you're applying for. Some of the other things that we wouldn't typically include would be details about the company, as Kamal was mentioning, because that really just extends out the cover letter. And if you're applying for a company, they typically know everything about themselves and they're really looking to learn about you. I would steer away from dot points. So just making sure that we have, as you can see on here, short paragraphs and structuring it in a way that you're detailing your work experience, your education, and how that relates to the actual role requirements.
Thanks.
You're very welcome. Is there another question there?
Hi, I have a question.
Melissa?
Yes. Hi. Excuse me, I have a question. You mentioned cover letter is different with resume. I'd like to know what is the difference between cover letter and resume?
Great question. So your resume details the specifics of every role that you've had, so all of your jobs, and it will also go into detail about what you did in those jobs. So for example, if you were in a customer service role, you'd have details about if you answered phones, if you dealt with customer complaints, if you dealt with filing, if you spoke to customers face to face, and then it will also include your education. So, or any certificates or diplomas or degrees that you've been successful in. So the actual cover letter doesn't go into detail like that. Your cover letter is literally, if you think about it like a conversation that you're having with the recruiter to introduce yourself and only pick out the relevant experience and education that you've had to the role that you're applying for.
Yeah, thank you. I got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I have a question. Hi.
Hi.
If we don't have any experience relevant to that position, what we should mention in our cover letter?
That's a really great question. So when we don't have any direct experience relevant to that particular role, what we can do is look outside of our professional space and look at in our personal lives whether we've actually done anything that may contribute to being successful in that role. So what I mean by that is you may have done some work experience that wasn't paid. You may have which is volunteering. So you may have volunteered in a certain space. You may, be a busy mum with managing lots of children, and that obviously gives an amazing skill set. So you would detail how those skills are very transferable to being successful in that particular role. The other thing that you can do to manage that is by letting the potential employer know, although you don't have direct experience, you may have an education that gives you foundational skills to be successful, and that you would be looking forward and very dedicated and committed to growing in this area, and would look forward to discussing what that might look like when you have an opportunity to meet with them to talk about the role further.
Thank you so much. That was so good advice.
Sorry, this is Daphne. Is that okay if I just add a little bit to your answer? Is that all right? Because, or maybe, I don't know if it's a question, but you would never really apply for a professional job on the basis of what you have done in your personal life. Is that right? So, for example, a teacher could never rely on what you've done in your personal life if you don't fulfill the requirements. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so if a role, it's a really good question, Daphne, or a comment. If a role advertisement had details that you required specific education to be successful in applying for that role, then it doesn't matter what life experience you had, because you wouldn't have the education. So for example, a teacher, there's a requirement, and the advertisement would detail that there's a requirement for you to have a degree. And so if you didn't have the education that was required, then there would be no point in applying for the role, because it's a definite requirement that you have a teaching degree to apply for that particular role. Thanks, Daphne. That was great.
Excuse me. I had experience all through all these things, cover letter, interview 3 times, and passed all the exam. But the problem is I don't have any referral. How can I get a referral?
Yeah, that's a great question. So potentially, if we can't utilise anybody from previous roles that we've done, so our previous leadership team that managed us, you can actually look to have personal referees in your life.
Yeah, but it's overseas.
Sorry?
It's in overseas. They don't want to take in whole referral in overseas.
Sure, yeah. So you could use people in Australia like teachers, or if you have mentors or friends that you have in your life.
Yeah, the problem is because it's a very professional job. They don't want to take in any teacher, friends. They just only want the company, professional manager referral. So I lose this opportunity because I don't have any Australia referral.
Sure, okay. So, and your experience is that they haven't been willing to take your overseas experience as a referee.
Yeah, because I don't think they want to track into overseas referral. They want to me find in Australia, but all around me is relative, like my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, or friends. I don't think they want to take in is from relatives. They want to take from other.
That's a really unique situation, Yulin, because in my experience, if I had a referee that was located overseas, I would actually conduct that referee. So potentially it's a discussion with the recruiter about how you manage that situation. Is that something as well? I'm just going to pop everybody on. It's obviously very difficult for you to secure a role if you're not able to have a referee that's based in Australia. So I would be having a direct conversation with the recruiter about what your options are, because I would definitely, as a recruiter myself, I would be taking into consideration that referee and would be contacting them accordingly and trying to identify how we could get creative with having that interaction so that I could fulfill that referee conversation for you. So I would be encouraging you just to have a discussion with that recruiter about what your options are, especially if you fit all the other requirements of the actual role from a skills and experience and education perspective. Do we have another question? I'm just going to see who.
Yes.
Hi.
Sheila.
Hi, my name is Sheila. Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you
too. I have not any experience to writing about a cover letter, and I want to know who can check my cover letter after writing my cover letter.
Yeah, that's a great question. So in terms of if you do have any one around you that is able to, such as teachers or even friends, can be really helpful as well. I've always had friends cross-check things for me. Otherwise, with the template that I'm giving you, Google is an amazing friend. So you can always get examples off Google dependent on your situation and what you need to be including in your cover letter. But once you've actually written yours up, it'll be great. It would be a great resource just to use the people around you to have a read and get some feedback and a sense of what they feel like you've potentially missed over, or even just to give you feedback on what they found really positive about your cover letter as well. If all else fails, I'm quite happy to give you my details and happy for you to send it through to me, and I can always have a look over it for you.
Oh, that's so kind.
Yes, that's okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Yulin, did you have another question, or was that your hand up from previous?
Sorry, me?
Yes. Did you have another question?
I just still follow what I mentioned. It's just the last experience is just reply for me if I don't have local reference. So I just not get this job.
Yeah. So was that the reason that they gave you, that because they weren't able to contact?
They want contact. Yeah, they want contact the real person.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I'm confused about that myself, to be honest, Yulin. I'm not sure why they wouldn't have pursued that overseas reference check for you. So I'm really hoping that that's not going to be your next experience, because as a recruiter, that's not something that I would have found a hurdle for myself. I would have utilised your references being in Australia or overseas.
So if I can do tricking way, I can let my friend attack pretending is my employee before.
I know it can be very enticing to do that, because it can be frustrating. But as I mentioned, I don't know why that was a hurdle for them. So I would trust in the process, and I wouldn't expect that that's something that you'll continue to run into, because, as I mentioned, in my experience, it's never been a hurdle for me, and I've contacted people overseas to conduct reference checks before. So I don't expect that that's going to be your experience moving forward.
Oh, I previously is apply in the airport job, so they're very high security. So they want lots at them, and also referee.
Yeah, right. Well, again, I'd be getting some advice for them on what you should do around that, because if you were to pursue using a friend in that type of a situation, if it is a high security environment, then if they found that out, you would obviously potentially lose your employment with them. And that's for any role. If there was found to be anything fraudulent, that would obviously put your employment at risk, and that would be devastating. So I think it's definitely worth a conversation, because there would be a lot of people in your situation that don't potentially have references that are located in Australia. So I think it's, contacting a recruitment who's very involved in that type of recruiting for those roles, and asking how you get around it.
Okay.
And
good luck, Yulin.
Can I just also add, Cara, that it's really important to look at volunteering. And City of Whittlesea does have a program called Work Ready because of the COVID situation. So Work Ready is a program that enables people to come in and have a work experience opportunity with the council. And because of COVID, we haven't been offering that program, but it is a program as restrictions lift that enable students or others wanting to get a work experience in a local government setting. It happens over a 12-week period, so it's a 3-month period that you get a work experience. And many people who have done that have gone on to get jobs. There's also Whittlesea Community Connections run a volunteering program. Volunteering is a terrific way to get work experience in Australia, and there are many opportunities. So I encourage you to contact Whittlesea Community Connections. And the Brotherhood of St. Lawrence also runs a program called Given the Chance. And that is also an opportunity to give migrants, refugees and asylum seekers a work experience in Australia. So, that's really important, because often recruiters will ask, what experience do you have in Australia? So, just wanted to add that. Thanks. It's been a great session, Cara.
Thank you so much, guys. I've enjoyed it.
Can I also add one more final thing to that point that Maria made?
Absolutely.
Another thing to also include in your sort of pathway to employment is to, when you do courses, try and look for courses that offer work experience as a component. of the course, because often from work experience, you can get the names of referees. So that's another little sort of helpful hint.
And
yeah, that's a really great point.
One more thing it does, I think one of the things we forget to do is to sit down and really map out your career pathway, and maybe work with someone, maybe the Melbourne Polytechnic Skills and Jobs Centre, to really look at where you are now and where would you like to be, and really map out a pathway step by step to get to where you want to be. So that is another opportunity to really map that out and think it through and write it down. Write down your goals and work with someone to do that. I'd encourage you to do that.
Absolutely, great point. Thank you so much, everybody. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for letting me present to you all, and I appreciate all the questions. As I mentioned, I have recorded the session, so if there's anybody that would like a copy, please let me know. And also, I've attached the template, the example that we went through for the cover letter, which you can download from the chat. So up the top of your screen, you'll see a little box with 2 lines, which has show conversation. And you'll see that I've shared a file cover letter example.
Cara, can I just also just let people know, with the film, we will put it up online. So we'll put it up on the Welcome Expo hub so everyone can access that. Good. And I'll send to Daphne the link and the other teachers the link to be able to access it.
Fantastic.
It's a terrific session. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon and enjoy the rest of the expo.
Thank you very much, Cara.
Thank you very much, Lara, for sharing with us this information.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Bye.